Hi, everyone. Here I am with a return guest who I just love, Diane Gilman. And I love her personality. She is pretty famous in New York and other places as a clothing designer. She once was called the Jean Queen on Home Shopping Network and QVC, but she built this empire because she saw a need for older women and she did something about it. And that's my kind of girl. Say hi, Diane.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here.
Yeah. And she also wrote a book called Good Genes, Jeans, 10 Simple Truths About Feeling Great, Staying Sexy, and Aging Agelessly. And I am all for that. I try my best.
And I also wrote two other books in the meantime.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, Too Young to Be Old, which is a lot of tips about how to grow older in a modern way, which
Yeah.
means with less aches and pains and kind of supplementing your diet and your whole life regime, not necessarily with classical Western medicine, and an international anthology book about the most challenging segment of your life called Women Thrive 3. So I've been a busy girl.
Yes, you are. That's why I said our personalities are so in sync because I wrote my first book, I was 72, and I did it to ward off depression because I was a caretaker full time for my spouse, and da da da. And then next thing you know, two more books and a podcast. It's like, but you know what? I love it. I love it.
Me too.
I love it.
Me
It
too.
keeps me in touch with the world, and I meet such interesting people like yourself.
Yeah, it is so fascinating and so information
Yeah.
packed. And what I find is that you and I and 51% of America are over 55, the majority of Americans, and yet we have to kind of carve out a space of our own and constantly be seeking information beyond just taking a statin or a weight loss drug or whatever.
Absolutely.
And so you and I become purveyors of really important information
Yeah.
for a very curious audience. I think
Yes.
it's so important.
I have started to get a lot of feedback. Other people that have podcasts have listened to some of mine and they've invited me on their podcast for several different topics. One of which today I'm going to talk about that we share in common, which is breast cancer. I
Yep.
am a survivor of breast cancer and it is 7 years. Yes, 7 years cancer free. And I did the double mastectomy. I luckily did not need radiology, but I got in trouble with implants. The
Oh,
implants, yeah, my body did not like the implants, and I had a couple surgeries and finally said, make me look like a 12-year-old boy. I don't care. Take them out, which he did.
wow.
And you also are a breast cancer survivor.
Yeah, same amount of time. I was diagnosed Christmas Eve of 2017.
Oh,
I had
exactly.
unbelievable.
Isn't
I
it?
had to go down to my television network, which was based in Florida, say goodbye to my audience, tell them I had just procured a second job, saving my life, and I needed to take some time away from TV to do that.
Yes.
And went into treatment 2018 and mid and February, and thought I would be gone a year, but was right back on TV for Thanksgiving Day, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
So yeah, and I had radiation. I seemed to have really, my body was very responsive, and at the same time, not much blowback, but afterwards, as the years have progressed. I can see I have a weakened skeleton. I had a lot of problems with my teeth because of chemo. But I mean, the good news is,
It got all the cancer.
yeah, and I had no issues, thank God, with
The
the
radio.
implants.
Oh,
I
good.
was just very lucky, but I took the right attitude.
You
And the
did.
attitude is it's a job. It's maybe the most important job you're ever going to have in your life.
Mhm.
And you better take it seriously. It is not a dress rehearsal.
Wow.
This is the real deal.
And
Yep.
what's right for somebody else is not always right for you. I mean, my mother had breast cancer, so I was on top of it, but she had
Oh,
radiation, and I know how much she hated that. And
wow.
yeah, and
Really? Okay.
yeah, and then she got colon cancer. I mean, cancer must be the thing in our family genes. So when I went and they told me it was HER2, whatever, aggressive cancer in my left breast, um, the doctor was going to do a lumpectomy. Okay. But she hadn't gotten this one specific test back. It was a specific MRI she wanted to see. She said, "Could you wait in the waiting room for a minute or two? Because I really want to see that first before we make a final decision." And I did about 5 minutes. She called me back in. She said, "I got it, and it's bigger than we thought. So I think we have to do a mastectomy and remove your left breast." And my husband was sitting there. And I said, "Oh no, take both of them." I didn't even think about it. Take both of them.
But I think that makes sense
It did make sense to me.
for balance
Yeah.
of your
Well,
body,
balance of
for
nothing else,
real.
for real. And if it's so aggressive, it might show up anyway.
Yeah.
So when we left that day, he turned to me, typical man thing, and said, "I can't believe you just made that decision. You didn't even talk to me." And I
What
started,
choice? I
yeah,
mean, seriously.
it's of my body, my choice, my body, not yours, you know.
I very, very rarely, I had no emotional attachment to my breasts. I didn't wear décolleté. It just wasn't my thing. So that was what the shock for me was, that I had two different kinds of cancer, one in
Oh,
each breast. So they had to figure out a way to treat that. But I don't ever talk about the treatment very much. And I don't love going back and revisiting that part of it. What I say is breast cancer was the biggest life lesson I was ever given.
mhm,
And it completely changed my life, got me out of a very toxic professional situation where, even though I was number one and the money was astounding,
mhm.
it was making me sick. It was so toxic.
Stressful. And
And so when I look back on breast cancer, and somebody, my oncologist, it was interesting that I got a world famous breast cancer surgeon, and she kind of ran the whole show. But
mhm.
I got a beginner oncologist. And so there was a lot of contrast there. But the oncologist did say one of the wisest things in the world to me. I asked her point blank, how painful is a mastectomy going to be? And she said, cancer treatment as a whole, Diane, is very much like childbirth. You are in pain for the moment, but the human brain cannot replicate pain past, let's say, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. And
Mhm.
so it's not that you'll forget about it, you just won't ever be able to experience it, and therefore it will diminish. But what breast cancer did for me, it reconnected me to myself, my humanity. It really upped the level of compassion and empathy, and it set me up for the rest of my life and gave me purpose and gave me form as well. And so I used my experience as a stepping stone. I see it in much more generalized spiritual terms. And
Yeah.
I had a body that just really responded well to the chemo, responded well. For me, the radiation was literally nothing. Nothing. I mean, everyone kept saying, "Oh, this is going to end that," and no, that was not much. I think that I had a little PSTD afterwards
Yeah.
because I went through it all alone.
I was just going to ask you about if you had any support system in place.
Well, um, I'm somebody who works much better across a television screen with thousands, hundred thousands, millions of people watching than necessarily one-on-one.
Yeah, I get it.
However,
Yeah.
announced, and I obviously had a huge responsibility with $100 million a year company to telling all sorts of layers of people around me that I was going to be different for a while and
Mhm.
not accessible. I could not believe the amount of people that lined up and said, "Oh no, oh no, 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 you are never going for a diagnosis alone, and you are never going for a treatment alone." Because it turned out that my head salesman had just been diagnosed for the second time with prostate cancer. It didn't look good, and we were both about to enter chemo together. So I remember I said, "I've got to go find out what the MRI is and whether I'm operable, or it's because my immediate diagnosis had been hopeless. You've got it everywhere. It was horrible."
Oh,
So he said, "Are you crazy? You are not going alone. I'm going with you." So he came with me, and I I swear to God, I'm amazed that the oncologist didn't have a heart attack. So she's sitting behind her desk. We're
yeah.
in a beautiful breast cancer facility, the Dubin Cancer Facility, which is a drop-in of Mount Sinai. So we're on Fifth Avenue, views of Central Park. He's talking about how all the good news he's had in his life, from his first child to his second child, were basically in Mount Sinai in office on the second floor with that view. So he's kind of distracting me. She goes to read my MRI, and it takes her felt like forever. And
Uh-huh.
she said, "There's like one little red spot somewhere in your body, but that could have just been from eating meat. And basically, it hasn't spread." And I literally jumped across her desk and started dancing up and down and hugging her. And she looked like horrified, like, "Oh my God, this
This
woman
woman is
is
too much.
insane." But once I understood that
Yeah.
it hadn't spread, and I knew that it was all my fault because I didn't pay attention to guidelines. I knew that I had pain. I ignored the pain until it got to be really visible, hard tumors. I mean, my attitude was nothing to do with self-care. My attitude was always, "I'm too busy for this BS. It
Mammograms.
can't
Did you have a
happen to me."
mammogram? You didn't even have a mammogram every year?
Never. Nobody
Oh,
in my family
oh
ever
my
had
gosh.
cancer, not any form of cancer. I
Oh,
had one mammogram I had to have for an insurance thing, and they said, "Well, we see a little shadow. It's probably nothing." And I said, "Right, it's nothing."
yeah.
Had I heeded that,
Got it
I
early.
think it would have been a different story, but you never know. Might not have been. But
Yeah.
when I got the initial diagnosis, it was from somebody less than professional, someone who did sonograms, and just said, quote, "It's spread. It's everywhere. It's hopeless.
Mm.
Then I got to, through everything that happens in my life, which is sort of passive miracle, my regular gyno knew the head of all cancer surgery at Mount Sinai. It was a best friend, Dr. Lasport, got me in to see her right away. And she, for me, it is very important that you speak my language. And I say to every woman out there, don't be passive about this. Find a doctor you can truly relate to, because then that doctor can be truthful with you. So she, very famous, has written 4 bestsellers on the New York Times for how to navigate breast cancer. So she looked me up and down. She knew me from TV. And she said, you look like a perfectly healthy woman with a localized disease in a part of your body you don't really need if we have to take it away. And I said, thank you, God.
This is the right person.
She's tough.
Mm-hmm.
She's pragmatic.
Yep.
She's truthful.
Yep.
And she's modern.
Yeah.
And I am sure there were plenty of times when I aggravated her and I didn't want to do this and I didn't want to do that. But mostly I decided nobody wants a bitchy, bitter older woman. I am going to be Miss Sunshine. Those chemo nurses are going to look forward to seeing me every week. I'm going to become their favorite patient.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that as someone who did not have direct family support,
Yes.
I needed every bit of support and positivity I could get around me, and I really worked at it.
I'm going to get to a story that has to do with that and you. And
Yay.
I had a different problem with my stomach. I had an infection. This is 2 years before the breast cancer, and they could not figure out the infection. And eventually they removed 85% of my stomach, which is fine.
Oof.
I never have to go on a diet again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the positive. However,
Always.
while I was going through this, they kept doing different antibiotic infusions into my body, and I'm a very hard stick. So they put a port in there. And they finally released me from the hospital, and I had to go every day to a clinic that did the chemotherapy. And it was very depressing, you know.
Oh, very.
All these women sitting there with blankets and no hair and the caps, and you knew they had cancer. And the nurses there would take me to this glass room. Like I could see everybody, but it was like a VIP almost, because I didn't have cancer then. I had a different thing. And they knew it was depressing. They're very smart. And I would sit there and for my treatment, and I would look and I think there's always somebody worse. But you have an interesting little story about when you went to get at the chemo center.
Oh, yeah.
The homeless woman. You know what I'm talking about.
So this is partially my mentality and why I think the universe gave me this challenge as a life changer. I began to see cancer as a great teacher and the great leveler. So when I went into treatment, I was at the height of my career. Wherever I was in public, I was signing autographs, I was taking selfies, and I came to a reality. I lived a reality that was like living in an ivory tower. You always, if you were in a hotel, were in the best suite. You were always on first class. You were always picked up by a car and driver. You were, your career and your fame and my visibility preceded me constantly. So I'm sitting the Dubin Center at Mount Sinai in New York, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's beautiful, and it's like a spa. There's fresh white orchids everywhere. If you are in chemo, you are going to get your own personal masseuse who will either give you a shoulder massage or a foot massage during treatment. You get a
Nice.
catered organic lunch. You have your own private TV system, and it goes on and on.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have fitted me more, right? I
What
mean,
you're
I'm used
used
to
to.
this, so I'm sure that this has all been planned for me.
Yeah, it's all
So
over.
I'm sitting in the room, and they put somebody in the room next to me, but the way they have the rooms positioned, you have your own, it's very discreet. So I can't see the person. And suddenly, from these nurses who are not that loud that often, I hear, Sheila, God, you look great. Oh, everybody, Sheila's here. Sheila's here. Come in. All the chemo nurses come running. They're thundering in there. And then they say, how are you? And how's everything? And oh, you're looking good. And oh my God, we're so glad to see you. And you know what? It's your favorite lunch today. We saved 4 of them for you. So I'm thinking, wow, this woman has a big appetite. And who the hell is this woman? I'm
Yeah.
not treated this way. And I'm a semi-star, so I figure she must be a soap opera star,
Higher up
a
than you.
Broadway musical or drama star,
Yeah.
or an anchor on one of the major
Jealous.
networks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, or Park Avenue lady who's a big donor to Mount Sinai. But it has to do with something, because nobody's doing this for me, and look where I'm at today. So I can't wait until my nurse comes in. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, who is this Sheila?
Well, first you
And
said
I named,
about lunch. First you asked her.
okay, so I
Yes.
get it. I'm coming to it. So I said,
Okay.
who is this Sheila? And why are you all paying so much attention to her? I said, and even more than that, she gets 4 lunches. You didn't even offer me lunch. And the nurse said, oh, come on, Diane, you never ate lunch. I said, well, but it'd be nice if you offered it to me. And she said, okay, Diane, do you want lunch today? And I said, well, no, thank you. But I really want to know who this Sheila is. So dish it out to me. Is she a news anchor, a donor to the hospital, a Broadway star? I mean, who is this woman? Because I'm thinking the only thing that can get you that kind of treatment has to be that you're very famous. And then
Yes.
you're treated with respect.
VIP.
She looked at me like, the nurse looked at me like I was demented,
Huh?
totally out of my mind. And she says, no, Diane, she's not any of those things. She is a battered wife living with stage 3 breast cancer in a homeless shelter because it's too dangerous to go home. And the food is so horrible in the shelter that she goes for days without eating. These 4 sandwiches will be her one meal for the next 4 days. Oh my God. I felt like a total schmuck. I felt like this, Diane, this is how far away you've gotten from your own humanity. You think
Yeah.
everything is pay for play. You think everything is about a glamorous surface. And you think everything is about if you make money, you're worth something.
Right.
And it totally changed my life. I realized part of the reason why I got cancer was to regain my humility. That
Absolutely.
part of the reason for having cancer was to reinvigorate my connection with my female community. I realized it was for understanding how precious life is and to be grateful for it. And then to round out the story, I never met Sheila. I never even saw Sheila. And yet that woman and I pray all the time for her that she's okay and got through it and found a better life on the other side, as I did, really. Um, that whole emotional journey was cemented on the backside by I'm sitting at home getting ready for a podcast. I've got CNN on something, and suddenly out comes Kate Middleton, the future Queen of England,
Mhm.
in a pair of jeans, which I'm thinking, yeah, that's great. Oh, this is so good for sales. Like, that's me. And a
Yeah.
simple sweater. And she announces she
Mhm.
has cancer
Right.
and that she is going to step back from the public for about a year to
Mhm.
deal with it and what it means to her. And I could relate to it all. So much of what she said was my speech to my much smaller audience, but
Right.
still
Yes.
around 750,000 women for me. And that was the first time since I was diagnosed, Christmas Eve of 2017, that I allowed myself to cry. And
Oh.
I wept like a baby.
Oh.
And I thought, cancer, the great teacher, the
Yes.
great uniter, the great isolationist, the great leveler. Um, we
Absolutely.
are all equal when we are in this together. How
Absolutely.
could it be that you're that young, 39 years old, that
Mhm.
you're that beautiful, that you're that wealthy, that you're that respected worldwide, you're going to be the Queen of England? How could it be that you have cancer?
Cancer
And
respects no one. Cancer
it
doesn't.
respects no one, but you must respect it.
Yes,
And
I agree.
what you may be able to get out of it will be as valuable as what I got out of it. I've
Yes.
never spent a moment since I came out of that treatment where I haven't appreciated my life, felt so grateful for what I have, felt so motivated to help every woman I could touch around me. It honestly, when I say it set me up for the rest of my life, it gave me purpose. It gave me a reason to be. It gave me a sense of self-respect and self-care I don't think I had ever had before. I cannot look back on cancer and say anything bad about it. I
Yeah.
have to say it was a very necessary part of my life. It never occurred to me I'd be sitting there in my living room weeping
Mm.
um, about somebody I was never going to meet or even get close to, but
Right.
somehow that network of cancer patients is such a strong bond if
Like a
you
sisterhood.
let it be. Yeah,
Sisterhood.
for
Really
sure.
is. And there's a lot of misconceptions about breast cancer, isn't there? I mean, um, I think that like you said, you never had a mammogram, all right? Did you do self-exams? Like they tell you just
I
no.
didn't do anything. I had a husband uh, who passed away when I was 52, who had struggled with cancer for 10 years. I was horrified by it. I was the sole caregiver. Forms of chemo and radiation were really brutal at the time. They hadn't been perfected or softened or honed down or made gentler by more information. And I think the one thing in the world I was the most terrified of, cancer and chemo, were the one thing I had to face and face it alone.
And now you, I would think, advocate for other women to have mammograms.
I
And
don't
no,
I don't advocate that way. Everybody has their own process.
okay.
What I do advocate for, which I think is even more important,
Mm,
is do not look at it as a death sentence,
Oh,
and do not look at it as a hopeless situation. And believe it or not, I'm not some kind of Pollyanna where everything is, oh yeah, it's so great, I make lemonade out of lemons.
yeah,
But I look back on that time in my life as super necessary and intensely valuable, and so can you.
yeah.
So
Okay.
can anybody.
I
It
hear
is a
I'm practical.
spiritual
Yeah,
experience
it
because
is.
you are dealing with your own mortality.
Yes.
And that is something very personal and very private. But how you deal with that is how you're going to deal with treatment. And
Yeah.
so I think, look at cancer, breast cancer, any kind of cancer for women on a higher plane, kind of looking down and saying, how are you going to cope with this? What valuable information and character building are you going to get out of it? And
That's right.
then how are you going to use that?
That's right. I remember when at first they wanted to take a biopsy. This is before I go into the breast surgeon. And I went to get the results. And this doctor, lovely bedside manner, not. And I walked in and he had it up on the screen, the result. And my husband was with me, of course. And he looked at me and went, "No, I never met him before. You know, he said, yep, it's cancer. And, like real blunt. And I went, okay, all right. What do I do next? So well, you have to see a breast surgeon because she's going to do more tests, but they're going to want to remove it. And we left there. And again, my husband was like, you weren't shaken at all. You just got told that you have breast cancer. And you were like, what's next? That's me. What's next?
That was me. It was
Yeah,
pragmatic. I could not afford
that's the word.
any emotion. I
That's right.
find crying and any form of outward emotion exhausting. And I realized
It's,
I needed to use
yes.
all my energy to work with the doctors and the treatment and come out with a positive conclusion. Never allowed myself to be depressed, never complained ever, never talked about it with people. If they said, the only thing I can tell you that for me was, again, very cathartic, I had people around me where I said, I'm going to be fine. But they had that look in their eye of, no, you're not. Everybody dies from cancer. You're done. I had to get rid of those people in my life. I had to get rid of a lot of people
Yeah,
who thought they were being slick and going, oh, great. But I knew what they were thinking was,
she's a goner.
this
Yeah,
stage 3 cancer, are you kidding me? She's done for. And I could only surround myself with people that were willing to believe in me and
that's
believe, yeah. And the other thing too is I tried to put it into human proportion.
mhm.
So when I got my diagnosis and they told me you're going to be in treatment basically for 8 months or a year,
Mhm.
I said, okay, so how many months have I been alive? Well, I've been alive. I mean, it was some huge number, like
Mhm.
8,257 months. I mean, I was 72 years old, like you.
Mhm.
And then I said, all right, so I've been alive for 8,257 months, and I'm going to have to go through 10 or 12 months of treatment. Come on, Diane.
That's
You
right.
can handle that. That's not that much. So every step of the way, when I came in front of something that was daunting or felt like, oh my God, this is an impossible mountain to climb, I
Mm,
would find a way to shrink it down into proportion.
exactly.
And I found that helped a lot. So I would say to anybody out there, you have the resources within your own heart and soul to make your journey through cancer
Yeah.
a doable, handleable thing, when in fact, if you don't, it could be a tsunami
Yeah.
of fear and a lot of medical stuff that I didn't understand. But I constantly kept bringing it into containable sections of my life. And the other thing I did, which I would say to anybody, is so important. That's what I made it, just one section of my life. I saw my life as, if you remember Jailhouse Rock with Elvis Presley, and they danced in all the boxes that
Yeah.
were supposed to be their cells. Or you remember that movie with Anne Margaret, Bye
Yeah.
Bye Birdie, where it was
Same
all
thing. I
these
do remember.
multicolored boxes.
Mhm.
That's what cancer was. Cancer
One
was
box.
a box,
Mhm.
a container amongst many boxes and containers that contained
Parts.
different elements and different eras of my life,
Oh, yeah.
but it was not going to be my whole life.
True. I just had someone say to me that had read my first book, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons, and she said, "Boy, you led many lives." I said, "That's how I think about it. That's why I'm not
Yeah,
a woman, because they were different segments."
yeah.
And don't forget, 2 years before the breast cancer, I had this horrendous infection in my stomach.
Oof.
I was not allowed to eat for over a month. I had IV supplements, whatever. They didn't even let me drink water,
Wow.
had ice cubes. And I said, you know what? I survived that. That's worse than this. You want to go a month without tasting food? It's terrible.
Yeah, that's pretty
Terrible.
heavy.
It
But
is.
the other way I looked at it also was, here I was, 72 years old. I've been healthy as a horse all my life. I had never even spent a night overnight in a hospital. I
Mm,
had never had a major surgery. I and so here I was,
yeah.
and I thought, okay, Diane, out of 72 years of being alive, one illness that the doctors say is curable and containable,
Yeah.
you have nothing to complain about. Just work your ass off, frankly,
Yes. Yes.
making sure you're eating correctly,
Yeah.
drinking the amount of water correctly, everything. And so I think that having breast cancer also taught me a lot of self-discipline.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I got through everything and I went back on TV and I had a record-setting day, we sold literally 250,000 jeans in one day on TV. I knew my audience was with me. My audience was female, and they were really relating to what I'd been through, and that made me feel so amazing. But
Yeah.
I also knew my career was over. That the hours, the and standing on your feet for maybe 11, 12 hours a day showing your jeans, that was going to be very difficult for me. And so I knew I had to have a major life change.
Hmm.
And that was perhaps one of the most difficult decisions.
Hmm.
And in fact, the best decision I ever made. Because I, like you, love podcasting, love meeting new people,
Hmm.
love learning new information, love giving it out to a female sisterhood. So again, I have only cancer to thank for that.
Yeah.
Strange.
One thing you did say that I reminded me, one of my first podcasts, I wish I could think of her name right now, a beautiful Black woman, a model for QVC. And she had to make a decision. She was making lots of money, but she was literally some nights sleeping in the studio.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
QVC
yeah. Oh,
24 hours a
yeah.
day. you know,
You did.
it's the stress of that and not having a life, the money just became not important. And I remember her telling me that, you know. So money isn't everything. People think it is. I mean, you want to have a roof over your head. You don't want to have an abusive husband like Sheila did. You want food on the table. But if you have enough just to meet those needs, that's great. If you have millions like you do, and I'm sure you do a lot of charitable work with that, you
I
know.
I am very frustrated right now because I feel that the numbers for cancer are going in the wrong direction. For people under 50, they have shot up 77% this year.
Wow.
And we are not informing the public enough about the toxicity in everything around us that we call modern living. Fast fashion, fast food, the air we breathe. And so that's sort of my new mission, is to bring all of that to the forefront and
Yeah.
say there's a way to lead a healthier life. Of course, it's your choice, but I really am passionate about giving out that information. But yeah, I took a huge pay cut, like monumental pay cut. It was like jumping off the Empire State Building with a bungee cord and never having done that before
Oh my
to
gosh.
change my life. But I am so much happier,
Of
so much more inspired and active and learning, and I'm just eating it up. I love it.
I know. And the other thing is that people don't always think about when they think about breast cancer, and this happened to both of us, was after all of that, up pops its lovely head, lymphedema.
Oh yeah, so I have lymphedema in my left arm, and
Mine's
then
on.
weirdly enough, I got it in my right leg, and that is definitely a source
Ah,
of constant aggravation and pain. But I'm now working on a series of podcasts. I've done some already in my podcast, Too Young to Be Old,
okay.
YouTube, that deal with alternative methods to wellness apart from Western medicine. So I'm taking a series of what they call them blue oils, and
Oh,
they're natural compounds. And I did one recently with lymph nodes, of which I have none on my left side.
yeah.
And, it was very effective. And so that's my new thing in life: heal thyself.
Tell me about
Yes,
these blue things. What is what?
nothing. They're just, I'll get my social media manager to give you the exact address to go to.
Okay.
Um, but there are many different kinds of oils you can use, like magnesium for better sleep at night and
Okay.
whatever.
Mhm.
But I do anti-inflammatory, circulation, and lymph, not even drainage, just lymph activity. And so that's my new thing also, is informing
Hmm.
my audience that if your doctor says, and probably will, I don't know, or wants to give you some drug that makes your body stop working, but then you're dependent on the drug the rest of your life, there are other alternatives out there. And it's
Yeah.
self-care can be really fascinating and actually kind of fun. So that's my newest discovery, is oils that go on the bottom of your feet.
I have heard
And
about some of these
yeah,
oils.
and
I use
they're really really pretty. I'm going to say maybe they change my discomfort 15%, 20%, but you know what? I'll take it because
yeah,
I am not taking pain pills. I am
no,
not.
no. I have arnica. I use that. I just
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I just had a Blu-ray treatment for my skin cancer. That's my pink face. And but it was like hurting and just swollen. I put arnica oil on it and it just calmed right down. I remembered the model. I don't know if you ever heard of her. Tara Lassiter. That was her
Tara,
name.
I know her. Yeah.
See? I had a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that podcast was called Golden Handcuffs.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I went to, I don't know, we had some kind of meeting in Tara's New York apartment, and she was just talking about the handcuffs of being beautiful when you're
Yes.
young and thinking that your beauty is your trade-off point for everything. In the long run, I guess invariably for somebody like me who found their greatest success at 60 years old and beyond,
Yeah.
you ask yourself on occasion, why? Most people want their stardom in their 20s or the latest their 30s, but my feeling is that's
It's
what my
like,
destiny was, and it's
yes.
all about my sisterhood who
Yes.
does not recognize that destiny for themselves, but is left to feel
Exactly.
adrift as they age as a female. And then on top of it all, if you get any kind of mortality based disease like we did with breast cancer, you're in a pretty isolated, scary situation, but actually you're not isolated at all
No, it's
because
yourself. Mhm.
50% of Americans are going to personally experience cancer in their lifetime. And
Mhm.
we need to do a better job of informing, being your cheerleader, and connecting.
Connecting. And that's the thing. And I have been told so many times by so many people, like, oh my God, I read your book, and that first half of your life, that first 40 years was horrendous. And how, and I go, you know what? It was horrendous. And I did not enjoy 1 minute of it at all. And I didn't think it had a reason for it to happen to me until I got to this place where I found myself and what I was supposed to do in life, which is to educate and empower other women. That's what I try to do with this show.
Yeah,
If you're an
yeah.
abused woman, and I have someone on my show that was an abused woman who I just had recently left him and became a commercial pilot. That's empowering. That's empowering, right?
I always say the same thing. You cannot have light without darkness.
Thank you.
I was not grateful for my life, as incredible as it was at the peak of my career, until I almost lost my life.
Yes.
And so I see the purpose of it. I see the reasoning for it. It brought out two more books. I'm about to write another book, so that'll be four books, and possibly another book after that, five books.
We're so on the same
And
path. It's
take my life in other
yeah,
directions and also have more respect for discovering my talents and maybe, just maybe, teach people around me that aging is a privilege, not a punishment. And the aches and pains you have,
you
deal
are
with them. Because honestly, if you fought for your life the way you and I have, trust me, when you come out of it, if you
it,
don't appreciate life and
yes.
really love
Yeah,
uh,
we both have a badge
the
of honor
the
with
second chance,
yes.
you're not human. You're a brick. That's
Yes.
it.
And if I kept all my knowledge to myself, that would not help anyone. But
That's yeah. You can't. You
that's
just can't.
all dark
I I I
experiences.
used to go into the waiting room for chemo, and I wanted to talk to women. I wanted to share things and find out their story. That's just me.
Yeah.
And but everybody was sitting there crying. And so and I'm thinking they're trying to save your life and you're just weakening yourself by having all these violent emotions. So I used to always find a little corner that was hidden to sit in, that was isolated because I didn't want to be around all that sadness.
Yes. I
I knew happiness was going to be a huge key to my recovery.
yes.
And that was really frustrating,
And if you look
really.
for it, you will find joy and happiness somewhere, even if it's in a sunset or hearing a bird.
Yeah.
Listen, our time is up. Would you believe
Oh,
that? We talked for an hour.
my God.
I have to fly up to New York. We have to spend some time together.
True. You must.
All
We
right,
have
Doug.
very good restaurants here, I
Oh, I
have
love
to
that.
say. And honestly, after a year of not being able to eat what I wanted to eat, and after all your time,
Mm,
yeah,
I love
food
food.
is like ever
Yes,
present on my mind.
I got you.
Well, I thank you so much. And I'm just hoping your audience
Oh, they'll get a
loved our
lot out of it.
conversation.
Yes, they will. And I'm going to have you back again because there's another area we could talk about. There's several areas.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I love you and have a great day.
You know what? Thank you again. It's so nice to be able to have dialogue with you, and we have so many parallels. And I think we would find amongst our both our audiences a lot of women that
Yes.
need the feeling that they're connecting with somebody who understands them. So, my privilege, my pleasure, and I will see you soon.
Well, thank you, Diane.
Thanks so much.
And breast cancer can also find its way to men. So I hope this show helps anyone that's dealing with any really invasive diseases and things like that. But remember, find joy in your day. Look for it.